A good pumpkin pie is a quintessential winter dessert. There's something about it that just speaks to the season. And you will love my pumpkin pie recipe. And it all starts with one of my favorite things to make, pie dough. I've got this down to a T. And whether you're making pumpkin pie, apple, or mincemeat this season, this is the pie dough. I have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'll add to that a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. This dough isn't a sweet dough, but I do put a little bit of sugar in it.
Some.
It actually helps make it tender. And the first thing you can do to make a tender pastry is actually coat your flour in 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil before you add your butter.
She turns on her stand mixer.
This protects the flour so it won't absorb too much liquid. If the flour hydrates, that's how you get a stretchy, tough dough.
Later, as she stops the mixer.
Now I'm ready to add the butter. What I've done is actually cut up my butter and let this sit out for 15 to 20 minutes just to soften up a little bit. You're not going to overwork the butter because it's slightly softened, and you're not going to develop the proteins in the flour because it takes less time. Can you tell I get a little into making pie pastry?
Later, with the butter mixed in, she turns off the mixer again.
And now I can tell that my butter's been worked in enough. There's still some visible pieces.
She crumbles them.
But that flour took on a buttery color. It went from being white flour to all of a sudden creamy butter colored. So that's when I know it's time to add my liquid. I have settled on a 1/4 cup of cool water, along with a key ingredient, tiniest little measure, 2 teaspoons of white vinegar. You can use lemon juice.
She adds it.
But that acidity helps to allow the proteins in the flour to stretch. When you roll out your dough, it rolls easily and without springing back.
And later,
that's it.
She removes the beater.
You can do that. I know you can make pie dough.
Then the bowl, and turns the dough out onto the counter in front of her. Then she splits it in 2 with her hands.
If you're making a full-size pumpkin pie, you only need 1 disc of pastry. You can wrap the other, and guess what? It freezes great. Just thaw it in the fridge the night before you want to roll it out and make your pie. But I am making 6 individual pumpkin pies, just stepping it up a little bit. So I will use this full recipe of pastry.
Combined again.
I'll shape it into a log.
Wrapped in cling film.
The reason I shape it like this is because I'm making 6 individual pies, I can cut it into 6 portions, rolling each just once. That way, I'm not re-rolling the dough, which can toughen it up after a while. So you want to let this chill for 2 hours to set up the butter and let it relax.
She puts the wrapped dough log in her fridge, and later,
just like the butter worked into the pie pastry, you can pull out your chilled dough 20 to 30 minutes before you want to roll it out.
She unwraps it.
So I'll cut this into my 6 individual pieces, and there will be scraps left over, and you can wrap and chill and re-roll those later if you need to.
She now flours her work surface and one of the portions and flattens it with her palm.
And then just with small
using a rolling pin
motions at first, keep rotating your dough as you roll.
The circle of dough gets wider as she rolls.
And if you ever see cracks developing through the dough, flip your dough over, because then the pressure of your pin will glue the cracks back together again.
She flours tart pans.
Whether you're using a full-size pie plate or these individuals, you want to sprinkle a little flour in the bottom of them. That helps prevent them from sticking underneath.
Now she grabs one,
you want to drop it in,
and presses her dough into it.
See, that slight softening makes it just a little more flexible.
She trims the excess around the outside edge with a knife.
All right.
And soon has all 6 done.
I'll just pop these in the fridge to chill while I tidy up and get ready to make the filling.
Later, as she sets out new ingredients.
And making a pumpkin pie filling is essentially making a custard. So I've got 2 cups of pumpkin puree. I'll add to that 3/4 cup of light brown sugar.
Which she does.
And to intensify the sweetness, darken the color, and also make it a little more wintry, I like to add 3 tablespoons of fancy molasses.
She scrapes out the cup she's measured it into with a spatula.
I'll whisk this together first. This gives the sugar a chance to dissolve. And now for the spices. Yes, you can use a pre-mixed blend of spices, but I like to have control and play with my flavors. And I find I don't want cinnamon to be the singular dominant flavor in my pumpkin pie. So I have equal amounts, 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and ground ginger. I have 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg and 1/4 teaspoon each of allspice and cloves. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt balances it out.
She adds in all of them.
And I'll whisk that in. And to set the pie filling, I have 3 whole eggs.
She adds those in.
They can get added all at once.
Then whisks the mixture some more to blend them together.
You really do want to make sure those eggs are well blended. Then it's time for the whipping cream. 1 1/3 cups of whipping cream.
She adds it.
And this is why pumpkin pie filling is a custard. You have the pumpkin puree at the base, but it's really the setting of the cream and the eggs together that makes pumpkin pie so rich and luscious.
She whisks in the last of the cream.
All right, I'll grab the pie shells chilling.
We see they're baked, but light in color.
And I'll just ladle this right into each pie shell. You can also make the same recipe using removable bottom tart shells. Or don't forget, you can do a full-size pumpkin pie.
She fills the last one.
Here we go, ready for the oven, which I've preheated to 375.
All of the tart pans on a baking tray.
These individual pies take 30 minutes to bake. You'll see the pastry has browned, and while the outside is set, there will be a little jiggle in the center. If you're making a full-size pumpkin pie, the bake time is 50 to 60 minutes to achieve the same look.
She slips them into the oven, and later...
Here are the pumpkin pies out of their shells and chilled. Now, how do you like your pumpkin pie? I know some people like to eat it warm.
Now out of their pans.
Personally, I love it.
She plates them.
Ice cold and dolloped with whipped cream. So,
she scoops some on.
pinch of cinnamon.
Using her thumb and finger.
How fulfilling is that? A pumpkin pie truly speaks of the festive season. And there's so many occasions throughout the winter to celebrate. So I know you'll be gathering together with family and friends, and you'll use this as an occasion to bake something special. Enjoy.
She tucks into one with a fork. Then, dipping it into the cream on top again to get more, enjoys a bite.
Oh, that's a nice buttery pastry. And that ice-cold filling means the spices kind of wake up as you're enjoying every bite.
She goes in for another one.